The forest is never silent in Appalachia. Even on the stillest nights, something stirs. Branches snap where no one should be walking. A low breath carries through the trees. And if you listen closely, you might hear it whisper your name. Legends say the hunger spirit roams these mountains. A creature born from starvation and madness. Tall, emaciated, with eyes that glow in the dark. They call it the Wendigo, and once it finds you, it never lets you go. Our story takes place deep in those ridges. A stretch of forest where the mist never lifts, where old coal towns lie abandoned, and the trees grow so dense that even the moonlight struggles to reach the ground. Three friends, Ethan, Mark, and Sarah, decided to spend the weekend in an old hunting cabin. The kind of place passed down for generations, where the walls are scarred with claw marks from bears, and the smell of wood smoke never fades. But the people of the town, they warned them. "Don't stay out past dark," one man muttered. Another said, "If you hear it calling, don't answer." And an old woman, eyes hollow with memory, simply whispered, "The hunger never dies." The friends laughed off the warnings. Just superstition, they thought. Stories to keep kids from wandering too far into the woods. But on their very first night, as the mist rolled in thicker and the woods grew unnervingly quiet, something began to watch them. And before long, they would realize the stories were not just folklore. The Wendigo was real. The forest was awake, and something was already moving toward the cabin. The warning in the woods the first day passed quietly. The three friends settled into the cabin. They lit a fire in the old stone hearth, laughed over cheap beer, and brushed off the uneasy silence outside. But even in daylight, the forest felt wrong. The trees leaned in, their branches knotted like fingers. The air hung heavy with damp moss and decay. And every so often, Ethan swore he heard movement in the brush, though nothing stirred when he looked. By afternoon, they decided to hike the ridge. The trail was narrow, littered with fallen leaves that muffled their footsteps. The deeper they went, the more they noticed things that didn't belong. A tree trunk gouged with deep, vertical claw marks, too wide for any bear. Bones scattered in the dirt, animal bones cracked open as if sucked dry. And worst of all, a sound that drifted from somewhere far off. A cry, high-pitched, almost human. Then silence. Sarah froze. That wasn't a deer. Mark forced a laugh. Coyotes, maybe, but his voice carried no certainty. They turned back before the ridge descended into fog, their nerves shaken but unspoken. When they reached the cabin, an old man was waiting by the porch. He wore a patched coat, his skin like leather from years of mountain wind. His eyes locked on them with something between fear and pity. "You kids shouldn't be here," he rasped. "This place is wrong. It's been wrong a long time." Ethan bristled. "We're fine, sir. Just a weekend trip." The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You've heard the cry, haven't you? That's no animal. That's the hunger spirit. It mimics the voices of the lost, draws you deeper until it has you." Sarah's face paled. Mark shifted uncomfortably, looking anywhere but the man's eyes. "Best leave before dark," the old man finished. Then, without waiting for a reply, he disappeared back into the tree-line. Inside the cabin, the three tried to laugh it off. Just some superstitious old hermit. But as night fell, the unease grew heavier. The fire crackled, but the sound couldn't mask what came from outside. The faint crunch of footsteps circling the cabin. Slow, careful, never coming too close, but never leaving either. Ethan checked through the window. Nothing. Just fog swallowing the trees whole. Then, a scream split the night. Not distant, not animal. It was sharp, ragged, and far too human. Sarah clapped her hands to her ears. Mark dropped his beer, glass shattering against the floor. And Ethan whispered, "It's right outside." The cry faded into silence. But in that silence, something began to scratch against the cabin walls. Signs of the Wendigo, the scratching was faint at first, like branches brushing against the wood. But the cabin had no trees close enough for that. It circled the walls, slow and deliberate, Ethan gripped the poker from the fireplace, his knuckles white against the iron. Mark tried the lantern, fumbling to keep it lit. And Sarah sat frozen on the couch, her breath coming in short gasps. Then silence again, as if whatever was outside was waiting for them to make the first move. Hours passed in tense stillness. At some point, exhaustion won out, and the three drifted into uneasy sleep. When morning came, they stepped outside into the fog. The cabin's walls were streaked with marks, not scratches from an animal, but long, vertical grooves, as if something had dragged claws down the wood. A few yards away, they found footprints in the mud, large, distorted, with toes that stretched too long to be human. Each print dug deep, like the creature was heavier than it looked. Sarah's voice trembled. Bears don't leave prints like this. The tracks led into the trees, and then stopped. Not faded. Stopped, mid-step, as if the thing had vanished. That's when they found the deer. Its body was half-eaten, but not by any predator they knew. The flesh wasn't torn. It was gnawed. The bones cracked open, marrow sucked out. The ribcage picked clean like a discarded meal. Sarah's skin went pale, her eyes wide, unfocused. Later, back inside, she wouldn't eat. She sat by the fire, hugging her knees, whispering under her breath. Hunger, cold, never enough. When Ethan pressed her, she snapped her head up, eyes dark and wild. Do you smell it? The meat? It's so close. That night, the forest grew unnervingly still. And from somewhere deep in the trees, they heard footsteps. This time, it wasn't circling. It was coming straight toward them, each step deliberate, heavy, pausing now and then as if listening. The three pressed to the windows, but the fog swallowed everything. Then, a silhouette appeared between the trees. Tall, gaunt, its limbs too long, its head cocked at an unnatural angle. Two eyes glowed faintly in the dark. The figure swayed once, its mouth opening in silence. Then a voice, Sarah's voice, calling for help. The friends froze, realizing the figure in the fog was mimicking them, and it was getting closer. The hunger takes hold the voice outside was wrong. It carried Sarah's tone, but stretched thin like an echo in a tunnel. Ethan pulled her from the window. Don't listen, he hissed, but her lips moved, whispering back. Mark slammed the shutters. We're leaving at first light. We're not staying here. But night in Appalachia is long. And the Wendigo never lets go once it finds you. Then came the smell. Rotting meat. It seeped through the cracks in the cabin. Ethan gagged. Mark covered his face. But Sarah inhaled deeply. It's feeding, she whispered. It wants us to join. When dawn came, they found blood on the trail, dragged through the brush. At the end of it, a man's body ripped open, his chest hollowed, his face frozen in a scream. And from his throat, a whisper repeated, hunger. Sarah crouched beside him, her trembling hands reaching out. Her expression was not horror. It was longing. Ethan dragged her back, but her teeth chattered. I can't stop it. I'm so hungry. That night, the Wendigo came closer. Claws scraped across the door, which strained under its weight. And between those sounds, it spoke, not in its own voice. In theirs. It mimicked Ethan. It mimicked Mark. It whispered Sarah's name in her mother's voice. Ethan gripped the poker tight. Mark clutched the lantern, and Sarah began to laugh. Low at first, then rising. A hollow, broken laugh. The moment Ethan turned toward her, she was gone. The door hadn't opened. The windows hadn't broken. But Sarah had vanished. Only the sound of dragging footsteps echoed into the trees. Ethan and Mark realized the Wendigo hadn't just taken her. It had claimed her. The Wendigo's claim the cabin was silent. Too silent. Her laughter still echoed faintly, trailing into the trees. And then, silence again. Mark's voice shook. She didn't walk out. She was taken. Ethan's face hardened. No, she changed. That thing got into her. By midnight, Mark was unraveling. He hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. His eyes ringed with shadow. He whispered by the fire, I'm hungry. It doesn't stop. Then a knock. Slow. Deliberate. 3 raps on the cabin door. And a voice. Sarah's voice. "Let me in. Please. I'm cold." Mark bolted upright. "That's her." Ethan held him back. "No. That's not her. That's it." But Mark tore the barricade away and threw the door open. What stood there was not Sarah. Her body was twisted, limbs too long, eyes glowing faintly. Her mouth stretched wide, lined with jagged teeth. She shrieked, and Mark never even screamed. The creature dragged him into the fog, his cries fading into the trees. Ethan slammed the door shut, but he knew it was useless. The Wendigo didn't need doors. It needed hunger, and hunger was already inside him. By dawn, Ethan was gone. Only footprints remained, long, distorted, vanishing into the mist. Locals say you can still hear the cries. Sometimes it's a man, sometimes a woman, sometimes someone you know. The Wendigo walks these mountains still, because hunger never dies. If you felt the chill of the Appalachian woods tonight, remember this: some stories don't end. They only wait for the next soul to wander too deep. Like, subscribe, and join us again if you're brave enough to hear the next tale.